GameRanks presents another episode of Before You Buy. Today we're bringing you first impressions as well as some raw gameplay from Black Ops 3. And because games just aren't cheap, we hope to help you make as informed a decision as you possibly can going in. So I'm gonna do this in 3 parts. First the campaign, second the multiplayer, and third, zombies. Starting with the campaign. The first thing you're given the option of is your character's gender. I went with female out of curiosity just because I kind of didn't expect it from Call of Duty. I know it was announced ahead of time, but I was kind of interested to see exactly what they were doing. Now for me, having that selection up front kind of implied that I was going to get a little bit more in the way of customization, but really you kind of just select from 9 faces and that's that. Frankly, the faces are really similar. I wouldn't really call it customization so much as here's 9 small variations on a face. That being said, this is Call of Duty, it's not Elder Scrolls, so I'm not sure I really should have expected it up front or anything, but basically every other game that starts me off that way has kind of created the expectation that I'd get to do more customizing. Though other than the voice actor, it really doesn't affect the game, so very minor gripe. So I'm gonna start off by just saying this. I really enjoyed the campaign. Is it groundbreaking? Is it shocking? Is it a roller coaster of emotion? Not really, but it's not just competent either. It's an enjoyable campaign that does make you feel invested beyond just getting to the end of the level. The characters are acted well and come off as having some kind of real camaraderie, and the game does actually make me care about them. However, this shouldn't be that massive a surprise, as Treyarch and their Black Ops series in general has been pretty good about story. That being said, is the story as ambitious as Black Ops 2? Not necessarily. And really, Call of Duty stories have to boil down to a good reason to go to war. The game starts off with a rescue mission that basically ends in the nightmare scenario of a robot ripping your limbs off. Oh, and by the way, fighting these guys is a pain, as human enemies in this game tend to play like previous Call of Duties, but these are essentially bullet sponges. It actually brings some interesting variation to the gameplay, to be completely honest. Sometimes you're running and gunning, sometimes you're tactically figuring out how you need to take out a limb-ripping robot. Really, if I were to place Black Ops 3 somewhere, it'd be between BioShock and Titanfall. Because once you're given the mechanical limbs and the DNI system, things become very different. From there, you go through kind of a primer mission that explains your powers and exactly what you're capable of, while giving you a taste for some of the more advanced gameplay that you eventually get to, and learn about some of the technology that essentially allows the game's premise to work. There are a few twists and turns, some of which are a bit predictable, but never groan-worthy. The game holds up pretty much the whole way through, and from a narrative perspective is actually enjoyable. Where Call of Duty has always been a little bit corridor-oriented, because the game has become very co-op focused, with literally every single mission in the campaign playable by up to 4 players, a lot of it has been opened up, except obviously there is a definite beginning and end, and it's always kind of directing you towards the end. It really depends on your taste and level design as far as whether or not you'll like it, but at the same time I don't really think it's going to put anybody off the game either. The mechanics have gotten so solid in this series that as long as you know what you're getting, which is somewhat arcade-oriented, fast-paced shooting, I really can't imagine you disliking it. And I'll also say this, to newcomers of the series, I've played enough Call of Duty to notice the progression, but I wouldn't really consider myself a fan, as sometimes it can get a little bit repetitive. They do operate on a yearly release schedule, and sometimes that means it takes them a little bit longer to get to where they're going. That being said, if every single Call of Duty game was this solid, I'd probably play a lot more Call of Duty. But that may also be somewhat of a bias towards the Black Ops series, as the last Call of Duty game I really thought that about was the last Black Ops, which was all the way back in 2012. As far as multiplayer goes, if you've ever played Call of Duty multiplayer before, you know that it doesn't really take a lot to get killed in it, and it results in a very fast-paced game. Bearing that in mind, I'm not really that good at the multiplayer in this game, but I did find it fun, if a little unbalanced. I'm probably what you would call casual in the multiplayer arena, and I was definitely not paired up with a lot of players that match my skill level. That being said, as people play more and their levels go up, the spread between players should be a little bit more apparent to the servers, and matchmaking probably will work a lot better. And even though I'm not really that good at it, I really enjoyed multiplayer. That being said, if you're a new player to Call of Duty, I would probably try to get through the campaign on a harder difficulty level, because frankly, Call of Duty multiplayer is frenetic, and it's very different from a lot of other multiplayer games I've played. It's geared toward continuous action, and maybe isn't the most strategy-oriented game I've ever played. It's basically be good at aiming and keep moving, which again, if you're expecting it, it's probably the best version of that possible. There are a few different modes in both the regular multiplayer and the arena, and I personally found the tried and true team deathmatch to be the most enjoyable, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the arena stuff is going to be very interesting to people. And finally, I wanted to touch on the zombies mode, which is as arcade as the game gets. And when I say that, I don't mean it in a bad way, even a little bit. It's essentially a wave mode where you fight a very large amount of zombies. It's got its own story progression, and it takes place in a very interesting setting. The voice cast is great. You've got Heather Graham, Jeff Goldblum, and Ron Perlman, among others, including a story that involves all the folks from the original Zombies mode in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and honestly is probably one of the more satisfying modes of the game, which, if you recall, I said that both the campaign and the multiplayer are enjoyable at any skill level, so that should tell you that this is a pretty enjoyable mode. So where does that set us overall with the game? Honestly, between the various visual, tactical modes that you can engage, it has varied gameplay, it's pretty well balanced, it's got a pretty decent story, and most of all, it's fun. So if you want my honest, untainted opinion on this game, and this is coming from somebody who has not read other people's reviews, it's definitely worth playing. If you've enjoyed any Call of Duty in the past, or if you're just a big fan of very fast-paced, arcade-oriented shooters, there's no reason to avoid this game. It is a very good example of this type of game. Is it perfect? No, it absolutely is not. And if you're a fan of more deliberate, strategy-oriented games, and expect that out of Call of Duty Black Ops 3, you probably will be disappointed. However, like I said, if your expectations and taste match what this game is, you're really not going to go wrong. It's worth the money, and it's a lot of fun. So did you pick up Call of Duty Black Ops 3 today? If so, leave a comment with some of your impressions of it. Obviously, the point of this video is to help people who are maybe not sure if they want to pick the game up or not, so your comments are very helpful in that respect. Also, if you haven't got it yet, but you're looking forward to it, let everyone know exactly what it is you're looking forward to the most. There's obviously a reason this series is so popular, so it helps people who are on the fence one way or the other. Also, don't forget to click the like button, it helps us immensely, and if you're not subscribed to GameRanx yet, now's the perfect time to do it because we upload new videos every single day, and the best way to see them first is a subscription. As always, we thank you so much for watching this video, we hope it was helpful in some way to you, and we will see you next time here on GameRanx.